Hey, good morning. Welcome back to Woodruff Woods. Hey, beautiful day here in northeastern Pennsylvania. We're going to see highs in the 70s today and tomorrow. So I had a bunch of vacation I haven't used. Won't have time to use it this year with my travel and the work that I have in front of me. But I did have these 2 days without any meetings, and I said, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of this. I had looked around my wood yard, and I don't ever remember seeing such a variety of species of trees in my wood yard. Most of the time, you know, I have a couple, but in fact, I had 13 different species of hardwood in my wood yard, and I thought it was a good time to start talking about those different species and what they may mean as firewood. Another reason I wanted to make this video was I had a discussion with a friend of mine who said, you know, he had looked into it and, you know, it doesn't pay to burn wood to heat your home. It's just as cheap to use traditional fossil fuels to do that. He said it might make sense with electricity, but other than that, you know, in his words, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. So I got thinking about that, and I couldn't see where that was actually the truth, especially with fuel prices. I mean, I just paid $6.89 for diesel, and I know home heating oil in this area has been going through the roof. Now, we do have fairly low natural gas prices here because we have the Marcellus Shale, but you know, I started thinking about it, and I said, I want to prove this out. Does it make sense to burn wood, even if you're buying it from me? And I sell my cords for $300 a cord. I think from what I hear on YouTube, that seems to be about middle of the road for what people charge. In my area, I can sell for that much. I know in some areas it's a little less, some areas a little more. So I want to take you through the 13 species that I have here, and let's talk about how they compare to various fossil fuels. So I've lined all these species up on my tailgate to my truck, and these are in order of their heating ability. So the number of BTUs that they put out per net cord, and that's really important. We all know a cord is 128 cubic feet, 4 foot high, 4 foot wide, 8 foot long. However, there's something called a net cord, and that's really just the amount of wood that you get in a cord of loosely stacked firewood. So that hovers around, you know, 75 to 100 cubic feet of actual wood. And so, you know, I used 85 for my calculations where I had to calculate. Some of these came from other websites. None of this is really my work. I don't have a way of measuring BTUs accurately. So I'm relying on information that I found on the internet. But anyway, let's get started. I'm going to pick each one of these up and we'll talk a little bit about each one. So the first one I want to talk about is hickory. This is actually shagbark hickory. It's very heavy. On the plus side, it has excellent heat production, 27,700,000 BTUs per net cord. So you may see numbers higher than that on the internet. They probably assume 128 cubic feet of pure wood. Like I said, I'm trying to make this as accurate as I can. So so how does that compare? So I have a little cheat sheet here I'm going to use. So shagbark hickory at 27.7 million BTUs equates to about 200 gallons of fuel oil. And at today's price, which is well, actually, it's a little higher than that now. I did this calculation last week, and I understand one of my friends just paid $5.89 a gallon. But at $5.80 a gallon, that's $1,158 worth of fuel oil to get the same amount of BTUs. Likewise, 27,000 cubic feet of natural gas at $662, or 303 gallons of propane at $901. So if you're buying hickory from me at $300 a cord, you're saving quite a bit of money. I mean, even with natural gas, you can buy twice as much BTUs of wood. So 2 cord of wood for what you would pay for equivalent BTUs of 1 cord of wood in natural gas. Going down the list here, This is dogwood. I don't burn a lot of this. It has very high BTUs. You know, it's, as a matter of fact, I have this one out of order for some reason, but that's okay. I'll go with it because it's right in the same class. So dogwood's 26.5 million BTUs. That would be 191 gallons of fuel oil. Again, a little over $1,100. 26,000 cubic feet of natural gas at 633, and 290 gallons of propane at $862. So again, you know, if you're burning dogwood, absolutely you're going to save money at $300 a cord. In that same class is apple, actually exact, and I will just show you. School bus is going by, sorry about that. But I'll just show you, this is apple. I don't have a really good example of it, but this is it. So apple, exactly the same as dogwood in terms of BTU production. I'll get these right back in the right order here. And we'll step back. At 26.8 million BTUs, you have black birch and black locust. So again, you know, you're talking a little over $1,100 of fuel oil, a little over about $640 of natural gas, and $871 of propane. So, you know, really good wood. I know black birch is kind of, you know, specific to the Northeast, but one of my favorite types of wood to burn. Then we get down into the oaks, white oak, red oak. So show those to you. And actually I'm going to just reach around, hit my camera so I can see what I'm doing. This is white oak. This is red oak. And I have to say, I probably get more requests for oak than any other wood. People think that's the best firewood. And you can see, you know, just from my little example here, there's a number that are better than that. White oak, you have about 25.7 million BTUs. Red oak, about 24 million BTUs. And in that same class, you'd have hard maple or sugar maple. You'd have beech. I didn't have an example of beech, even though we do see that in Pennsylvania. We do see hard maple, and I've sold all my hard maples, so I didn't have any examples of that. And then we get into, you know, one of the best firewoods, in my opinion, white ash. There's an old saying, ash, wetter or drier, the king can warm his feet by the fire. And that just means that ash is one of those woods that even if it's green, you can burn it. It doesn't produce as much heat if it's green, but it doesn't create a lot of creosote. It splits fairly easy. It's not the absolute easiest, and it's certainly not the hardest. It's not like hickory, but very good firewood. And I even found one chart on the internet that used everything relative to white ash. Basically, is this wood better or worse than white ash? So I think it probably hits the middle of the scale pretty well. Then moving down, we have white birch. White birch comes in, you know, at 20.3 million, and that's pretty much the same as like hackberry. I know many of you get hackberry. I do too occasionally, but hackberry I don't like to carry because it molds very easily. Black walnut, I get a lot of this. Black walnut, you're about 20.2 million BTUs. And then we have cherry, very popular firewood. Get a lot of requests for cherry, probably basically because it smells good when it burns. But cherry, you're at about 19.9 million BTUs. So, you know, now that we're down on this end of walnut and cherry, you know, you're talking about 145 gallons of fuel oil, you know, 20,000 cubic feet of natural gas. So natural gas is down to $483 of equivalent volume. And then you have 221 gallons of propane, which would cost you $657. So even as you're down into these woods that, you know, are certainly nothing like hickory in terms of their production of heat, you're still saving money. And then we get down into some that, honestly, I find I have a newfound love for soft maple. So your red maples, your silver maples. This one, I believe, given that grain, I believe that is an ambrosia maple. If Chuck from Iron and Oak is seeing this, he might be able to confirm that for me. But I was splitting this, got a bunch of these the other day. Just gorgeous wood. I actually am a little regretful that I put it into firewood. But honestly, the tree was in pretty bad shape and spots, so I probably didn't have much of a choice. But anyway, the soft maple, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want that. Well, it's 18.7 million BTUs compared to just about a million more BTUs for black cherry. So it's almost as good as black cherry. I mean, I realize it doesn't burn as well, it doesn't hold coals as well, but still a decent firewood. And then way over here on the other end of the spectrum is poplar. And poplar, you drop all the way down to 13.7 million BTUs. It is not a great firewood. You know, you're talking about 99 gallons of fuel, that's $573. Again, though, you'd still save if you bought a quart of that from me for $300. 13,000 cubic feet of natural gas comes in at $327. So that's almost where we get the break-even point on the natural gas. Obviously, the convenience of any of these fossil fuels could be weighed in there to say, well, for $27, I'd rather just go to the thermostat, and I totally understand that. And then 150 gallons of propane at $445. Again, for another $145, do you want to mess with wood? That's an individual decision. So, you know, to talk a little bit further about this, I want to go through some of the pros and cons of each of these woods. The first one I want to talk about is hickory, okay? I'm not going to pick all these up again. We'll just talk about a few. Hickory, incredibly hard to split. It's very stringy. With a hydraulic splitter, it's not too bad, but you know, you get into some knots and stuff, it doesn't want to split straight, and I mean, that's part of why it's such a great firewood. And it's heavy, you know, very dense wood. So you know, a lot of people don't like it because it's just it's so dense and so heavy, but has excellent heat production, excellent coal production. So, you know, holding a fire overnight is not a problem with hickory. Black birch, I've talked a lot about black birch. Absolutely one of my favorite firewoods to burn. On the positive side, it smells fantastic. When you're cutting it, it's sort of like a wintergreen smell, for those of you that have never encountered this. And then when it burns, it has somewhat of a sweet smell. And I've noticed that it also puts off more of a black smoke than a gray smoke. But it's one of those things I've often even joked around with people and said, you'll like this wood so much that if you're sitting around a fire, you'll pick the chair where the smoke is blowing. It smells so good. And we have black locust. Locust grows pretty much around the country from what I understand. Black locust, excellent firewood. Again, hard to split, good coal production though, good heating values, excellent choice for firewood. Going down, you know, apple, good firewood, obviously. Problem with apple is most of the trees are pretty small, and who goes around cutting down apple trees? So, I mean, I get some of it because my parents' property is an old apple orchard from probably 150 years ago. So occasionally we have blowdowns or whatever, and I do grab the apple because it is such good firewood. Oak. Okay, so I'm not a fan of oak. Not that I hate oak. Oak is a great firewood. I use it myself, but it takes a very long time to season. In my opinion, it smells terrible, especially white oak. For some reason, I think that smell is more pungent than the red oak. And, you know, it's, again, a heavy, dense wood, excellent heating values. Actually, probably the best coal production in my opinion. I mean, hickory's very good too, but this is quite good. Ash, we talked a little bit about that. Splits decently, decent production, burns hot and burns for a long time. Not such good coal production, probably on the moderate side. You know, cherry, You know, again, smells good. People like that. The smoke smells real good. It smells great when you're splitting it. It splits fairly easily. It only has moderate heat. And the other thing with this is it's prone to rot. You got to keep it up off the ground. Got to keep air flowing around it. Red maple. This is, I should say soft maple. This one I'm falling in love with. And one of the reasons I'm falling in love with this is it splits fantastic. It burns well, ignites very easily, much like an ash or a poplar, but it's resistant to mold. And for doing bundles, when you wrap them, a lot of times if there's any moisture in there, they tend to want to develop mold on them. This seems to be resistant to it, and it is one of the qualities that I found about soft maple. So, and then finally, poplar. I will say the only thing I use poplar for, it's fine for an outdoor fire. I like it for kindling because it lights very easily, but it does create a lot of sparks on the downside. Not great heat production, almost no coal production, so it's not a wood that you can heat overnight with. So anyway, why am I telling you all this? Number one, I've proved to myself the burning wood is economical. And on top of being economical, I see it as great exercise. I can go out in the woods. I can get some good exercise, do something I really enjoy. But I also, as you know, have a firewood business, and I get strange requests at times. I get a lot of people say, I don't want ash. You know, I want anything but ash. Oh, how about cherry? Well, I'll take cherry. I'll take a full load of cherry. Well, you know, if we were talking about a full load of cherry, a cord, let's say, you know, the cherry would come in at 19.9 million BTUs, where the ash is 23.6. So it doesn't really make sense that they don't want the ash. Cherry might make a little better coals than ash, but they're right there neck and neck, and I'm not really sure why someone would request that. When you get down into the soft maple, I get people saying, I don't want soft maple. Well, I get that. It is on the lower end of this scale here, but it's still a decent firewood. And then, you know, I will get people that say, I only want oak. I only want oak. Well, I don't deal in a lot of oak because it takes too long to season and ties up too much of my space around my house. You know, usually the oak that I get, I burn myself because with my woodshed, I'm able to cycle things through over 2 to 3 years. So it has plenty of time to dry out well, and so I use it in my house. Now, I will sell it if it's dry, or I will sell it and tell someone, hey, look, I just cut this down and split it. It needs to season. I'll sell it to you, but you got to stack it up somewhere and cover it and dry it out. So anyway, I think, you know, having this knowledge, it does help you help your customer, and you can talk about these different types of wood and really guide them for what they're looking for, you know, assuming you can get access to this type of wood. That's going to wrap it up on the wood story. I do want to end this video with something featuring lovely Lisa. The other night I came home from work, and she had kindly did a pallet of bundles, and she took an attempt to make her own YouTube video. However, she didn't understand how these Rode microphones work. She forgot to turn them on. They were plugged into the camera, and so there was no audio. But she used some of that ash that I was splitting in a recent video, and these bundles looked absolutely outstanding. So I'm just going to do a short video, put it to music. I'll probably even throw in a little bit of Lisa talking to the camera, even though we have no idea what she said. But thank you, lovely Lisa, for doing that. I do appreciate your hard work. You really do help out with this firewood business. And so hope you enjoy that video, and we'll catch you on the next one.